I'm in the process of renovating my daughter's living room, and I want to narrow this arched passageway. It's currently 60 inches wide, and I want to reduce it to 42 inches to make more wall space for furniture and cabinets on the other side. So back in my workshop, I have this scrap piece of plywood that I'm measuring out 47 inches. That's the 42-inch width that I want, plus 2 inches on either side for old-fashioned 2x4s that are a true 2 inches thick, and 1 inch for the half-inch drywall on each side. Then I'll mark a line on both sides of my square to represent where the 2x4s will go, and next I'll draw a line up the center. Now, if I wanted the arch to be a perfect semicircle, then I would measure up by 21 inches, which would be the radius, or maybe 21.5 inches to account for the drywall thickness. But I want this to be an elliptical shape, so I'm measuring up only 14 inches to be the co-vertex of the ellipse, and the line I draw will represent the semi-minor axis of the ellipse. Now, here's the trick. I want to measure from that co-vertex point to the point where the 21 inches intersects with the bottom of the arch, and mark that point on both sides. If this was going to be a semicircular arch, then those 2 points would become a single point right at the center. I'll put a screw into those 2 points, and then next I'll put a screw on the line that represents the inside edge of the 2x4 on each end. Technically it should probably have been inset another half an inch to account for the drywall thickness, but I don't need exact measurements for this. These 2 screws can be anywhere on that line, but they should be at the same distance from the bottom. The purpose of these 2 screws is to use them to measure the length of the string that I need. I basically want the string to be the same length as the major axis of the ellipse. In this case, it will be 43 inches apart. Next, I'll take that string and put it around those other 2 screws that are closer together, and then run a pencil along the inside of the string to form the elliptical shape. My pencil broke, so I had to go and sharpen it. Now I just need to cut along that line with my jigsaw. Then I'll use that piece to draw the outline of the other side of the arch that I will need. And then I'll cut that piece out too. The plywood was longer than I needed, so I cut off the excess of my table saw. Next, I'll use my track saw to cut it down the middle. Alternatively, you could cut the arches out of 2 separate pieces of plywood, but I just happened to have this scrap piece that was big enough to cut out both pieces. Now I'm back at the house, and I'll remove those pieces from the old arch. Now I need to add in some blocking so that I can fasten those 2 arch pieces. It's pretty level, but not perfect. and that's because nothing is perfectly level in this house. And it doesn't particularly matter for an arch anyway. Next, I'll cut out the hardwood so that I can extend the bottom plate and put in a new stud on the other side of the arch. I'm using a level and making it plumb to extend the position of the stud down to the floor to figure out how far I need to cut out the hardwood. I'm using an old 2x4 for this because it's a true 4 inches wide, just like the rest of the wall. Next, I'll nail in another stud to serve as a jack stud to support the arch. Then on the other side, I'll put the jack stud under the arch and then just extend it up to the header with another short piece of 2x4. I'm not sure why I did that instead of running a 2x4 all the way down to the floor. It certainly wasn't to save $4 on a 2x4. I have a feeling I had run out of 2x4s, so this was just my hack to get it finished without running to the store. And it gave me more room to position a bank of light switches that I would be adding on the other side of the wall. And then I nailed a small piece into the header and nailed that to the extension to give it stability. And now I'll nail the plywood arch onto the other side. Next, I'll add in some little blocks along the underside of the arch to give me something to nail the drywall into. Next, I'll cut a 4-inch strip of drywall. To make it bend along the curve of the arch, I need to score it along the back side every couple of inches. And now I'll screw it in place. I marked the position of each block so that I would know where to screw. Then I just needed to finish the drywall in the living room and cut around the arch. I used a utility knife, but you could do that with a drywall saw too. Next, I screwed on a special flexible corner bead meant for curves like this. A week later, the living room was all finished with drywall compound and paint. Next up, I'll be moving the kitchen into this room, so that's why the inside of the arch is left unfinished.